Are those condo fees going up? Stick with me and you'll find out.
You better get fired up.
Guys, welcome. I appreciate you joining me this wonderful Friday. We're going into the weekend, and I thought, man, what better way than to tell all the condo owners that they've got fees that are potentially going up? No, but honestly, there are some timelines coming up. I want to say it's 2025, but we'll dig in here in just a second, where there are going to be some changes. I think long term, they're probably great changes. Short term, it's going to be a little bit of an eye opener for condo owners. And really, if you look at that, it should open the eyes of people who are potentially looking to purchase a condo, whether it's for an investment purpose or that's where you're going to live as your primary residence, whatever it is, it's important to know. Also, if you're a current owner, it's important to know this before the timeline I'm about to talk to hits so you can make some good thought out decisions, right? Maybe dig into the financials of your HOA. A lot of people do not dig into the financials of their HOA, and I think it's absolutely critical. So here I'm going to look at a couple things that I saved before I came on here. I'm going to read this specifically to you, right? Florida law requires every condominium's annual budget to include both operating expenses and reserves for capital expenditures and deferred maintenance. So what are operating expenses, right? That's your day-to-day operations, all right? Your landscaping, pool maintenance, management fees, those types of things, right? What are capital expenditures and deferred maintenance? Those are things that are incurred during the sporadic repair or replacement of major components of the condominium property. So this is like the roof, the parking lot, painting on the outside of the property, things like that, right? So to properly budget for reserves, you have to do what's called a reserve study. So reserve study is a company that comes out and they look at the totality of the property and they tell you as an HOA board, this is what we foresee your expenses being to maintain this property over the next 10 years. And I'll get into this a little bit later, but you're supposed to do one of these every 10 years with the new law, right? At a minimum. And I'll tell you, I am a board member for our board here. I live in Bedford Park in Port St. Lucie, part of tradition. Love it. And we just got one of these studies done, and it's incredibly helpful. I am a real estate agent. Another wonderful gal we've got on the board. She is an accountant. We've got another guy who's retired, used to be in the Navy. None of us are professionals at going to a condominium and dictating over a 10-year period with inflation included and the economy and everything else, what those costs are going to be. And then, figuring that into our reserves. So we hire a company to do this, right? What you're currently able to do is, as a board, you can decide whether or not you truly want to save in reserves for all of those different things that are upcoming. And you might say, well, of course we want to save. Why wouldn't we want to save? Well, because that means we as a board would have to raise your condominium dues. On homes, townhouses, you have to do it, right? But on a condo, you don't. It's a choice. So what happens? What happens right now, potentially, let's see if you've got a board who's trying to keep your condo fees as low as possible, is you're seeing these boards say, hey, we're going to keep the condo fees low. Everybody likes that. And when we need a new roof or we need, whatever it is, exterior paint, whatever it is, they're going to impose something like a special assessment on you, right? So let's say we've got, man, I better use easy math here. Let's say this is a big condo unit. There's 100 people in there. And let's say the roof is going to be, come on, Joe, use a number that makes sense. Let's say the roof is going to be $1 million for this, right? And maybe it's a couple different units. So that is, with my math, $1 million, 100,000. That's $10,000 a person. Yeah, that's probably about right. $10,000 a person. What they're going to do is just charge you 10 grand. You're going to pay 10 grand. If you've got the money, great. If you don't have the money, what they're probably going to do is take out a line of credit or a loan or whatever it is. And you're going to be paying that back in payments with interest, which could be 7, 8, 9, 10+%, right? Whatever you have available to you at that time, based on the knowledge, negotiation, and expertise of your board, which might, well, probably is a volunteer board, right? So take all that into consideration. So me, I'm fairly conservative. So I can tell you on my board, I'm like, hey, let's figure out what that reserve says. Let's figure out what it's going to cost every year. And let's start raising those dues to make sure we've got those costs. You're going to pay the money no matter what, right? No matter what, you're going to pay that mythical $10,000 I just said, whether we charge you a one-time fee when the roof is due or whether I raise your dues and charge you every single month until the roof comes due. Either way, you're paying the money. It doesn't really matter how we slice the cake. You're paying the money. Here's the challenge as a board. When you present this idea to condo owners, hey, should we raise fees to cover future issues like roofs, or should we keep them low, but then you're going to have to pay for them at the time? It's hard to get that voted on and accepted because so many people have in their mind, number one, I don't like my dues raised. Number two, there's a good chance I won't live here when that roof comes due. So the next person can deal with it, right? So because of that, it doesn't get a lot of traction in a lot of the condo HOAs, and they don't thus save the money for the reserves, right? That is a challenge. So as a conservative financially, I think it's really important to have that so we don't have, the people who are probably financially the tightest getting hammered with this large fee, not being able to pay it. And now essentially they're taking out a credit card, probably a lower interest credit card, but not low interest. It's lower than a credit card, but it's still interest I wouldn't want to pay, right? And had we just forced it out and increased monthly payments over time, we'd have the funds to cover it. So anyway, that's a perception, that's an opinion, but that's something that is coming here. So we talked about that. So there's Senate Bill 4D, and it was enacted in May of last year, 2022. And it was created in response to the collapse of the Chaplin Towers South, right? There were problems. They didn't have the funds to support it. And they said, holy smokes, this is a big deal. We better get a bill to force condo owners to pony up a little bit more money every single month. Does that hurt? Yeah, but does it hurt as much as one big payment? No, absolutely not, right? Okay, we talked about that. Okay, so beginning in 2025, so we've got 2 years. Members of a unit owner-controlled condominium association may not elect to provide no reserves or less reserves than required for the building components. And here are the 10 components, right? Number 1, roof. Number 2, load-bearing walls or other primary structural members. Number 3, floors. Number 4, foundation. Number 5, fireproofing and fire protection systems. Number 6, plumbing. Number 7, electrical systems. Number 8, waterproofing and exterior painting. Number 9, windows. And number 10, any other item that has a deferred maintenance expense or replacement cost that exceeds $10,000, and the failure to replace or maintain such item negatively affects one or more of the components above. All right. So that's in 2025. So we've got 1.5, 2 years before that's going to be enacted. So as a potential condo buyer in the future, as a current condo owner, as someone who's maybe strapped for cash and they're worried about HOA fees going up, as a board member on a condo association, you're going to learn about this, right? It's going to happen. I think long-term, again, this is my financially conservative opinion here. I think it's a good thing. It's how I run my business. It's how I run my family's financials. And it was certainly how I'm trying to run our HOA's financials, right? I think it's important to save money proactively to combat things in the future. And I think if you're wrong, right? If the roof ends up not being $1 million and it's 800 grand, guess what? We've got 200 grand in reserves. Maybe for the next 3 years or whatever it is, I don't have to, as a board, raise your dues because we've got so much in reserves. Who's going to be complaining about that problem, right? I'd way rather be conservative and safe than hammer people with large fees. So anyway, there are a couple things that I want to make sure you guys were aware of. If you've got any questions or anything like that, feel to reach out at any time. You can DM me. You can put a comment on this video. I will always respond. But thanks for joining me and have a phenomenal weekend. Take care, guys.